Welcome to Light Warrior Radio, where our mission is to empower sensitive souls to harness their superpowers and shine their light, so together we can co-create heaven on earth. I'm your host, Dr. Karen Kant-G, author of the #1 best-selling book, Sensitivity is Your Superpower, and founder of the Academy of Light Medicine and the Topican Healing Method. Thank you for joining me. Hey, I want to talk about slacklines for a moment. Now, do you know what they are? Imagine an old-fashioned trapeze, except the string or the rope is actually a flat strap that sort of like a yoga strap that doesn't stretch, that is stretched between, say, two trees or two poles, and only a couple of feet above the ground, and you're learning to balance on the slack line. Now, in yoga slackline, you have exercises where you're balancing on your back, on your butt, on your feet, on your knees. There's all sorts of, various different actions. And it's not easy when you first start learning slacklining. And I remember one of our yoga slackline teachers, she said, because my husband and I kept falling off the slackline on the same side. And she says, fall purposefully on the other side. And we're like, what? And she said that, you keep falling on the left side, but you're not allowing yourself to go past that balance point to fall on the other side. So practice falling on the other side. And we were like, okay. And she was right. We didn't want to fall on the other side. Like, we were just really feeling really safe falling on the one side. So we began falling on the other side purposefully, and it felt strange at first, and then something magical happened. We were able to balance better on the slack line now that we have experienced both extremes. And I think that's a beautiful metaphor for our lives, especially as light warriors, especially as sensitive souls. Sometimes we are told that experiencing extremes is a bad thing. It's a bad thing. So I'll give you an example where not being willing to experience an extreme can block us from what it is we desire. There was a patient I had a long time ago, an acupuncture patient. I'll call him Tim. Don't have a patient called Tim, but I'll call him Tim. And he was very controlled in his emotional state. And I asked him about it one time. I said, why you don't seem happy, you don't seem sad. I mean, like, what's going on really? And long story short, he controlled his emotions within a very narrow band of expression. The reason was, I found out, when he was younger, he would go into angry fits of rage, to the point where he would like almost black out. Like, he would literally see red. And then he had no control. And he might have hurt people. Now, this was decades later. I said, what happened? He said, I learned to bottle it up. I learned to control my anger. But what happened was that he bottled up all his emotions. So it was a real learning for me, because I realized that to the degree he did not allow a healthy expression of anger, he was not able to feel joy. The exact opposite. It was completely blunted. And it really got me thinking, oh wow, how have I blocked feeling negative emotions? So as a light warrior, as a spiritual person, it isn't about trying to feel good all the time. I know if you watched like the 2006 movie The Secret, and they simplistically said, well, when you feel good, when you think good thoughts, you feel good feelings and emotions, you attract good things to your life. It's simplistic. What they missed out was that now you got a whole bunch of people who might be feeling fear but go, oh, I can't feel fear. I can't feel fear. That's really bad. I can't feel fear. So I got to feel joy instead. Right? It's not authentic. And they're not accepting and honoring their process in that moment. They're covering it up. They're pushing it down. So, for example, I read in Dr. David Wolf's book, Relationships That Work, highly recommend, by the way. Imagine our negative emotions as part of a beach ball filled with air. And we're floating in the ocean with this beach ball, trying our darndest to get it below the surface, right? To hide this beach ball. Now, the more negative emotions we collect, do not honor, pretend is not there, what happens? This beach ball gets pretty big, full of air. And there is no way we can push it down, right? We try to sit on it. We try to lie on it. It's like getting really hard. And eventually we lose our balance. And then this beach ball goes and explodes up from beneath the surface of the water. And that's what happens to many of us as we suppress our negative emotions. It comes out sideways. And you know how it comes out sideways? Some of you know already. It comes out sideways in our bodies. And sometimes it does come out sideways in our expression, our verbal expression or energetic expression. So in the slackline experience, if you are always on the one side of the slackline, being nice, we talked about spiritual doesn't mean nice last podcast, right? Last episode. If you're constantly saying, well, good emotions are fine, but negative emotions are not, eventually what will happen is you will truncate your ability to feel those good emotions. You will not have access to bliss. You will not have access to true joy, happiness, if you are not willing to acknowledge, entertain, and be okay with natural human emotions that we have labeled uncomfortable or negative. Sad, grief, anger, irritation, annoyance, resentment, jealousy. Oh, there's a whole page of them. I won't read them all. Because we have equated feeling these emotions as being a bad person, or we've equated these negative emotions as OMG, we're going to manifest negative things in our life based on the law of attraction. Oh no. However, it's not actually true. You're saying, Dr. Karen, but I read so many law of attraction books. They say it's true. Not exactly. At least not from my perspective. In my book, Sensitivity is Your Superpower, there's a chapter called The Nirvana of No. Now, most sensitive souls that I know, especially the women, but even the men, have great difficulty in saying no when it is appropriate to say no. For example, you really don't want to go to this party, but your friend asks you, you feel bad, you feel you should, you feel like, oh, she went to my parties, I should go to her party, right? So you say yes when you really don't want to go because you're tired, you got work to do, all these things. So we often will say yes when we actually want to say no because of many things. Number one is we do not want to feel the other person's disappointment and negative energy. If they're disappointed, if they're sad, they're angry at us, we don't want to feel it because we're sensitive and we can feel it in our bodies. So we say yes to avoid feeling what they might express in their bodies because we're so sensitive we can feel their stuff. So we're actually trying to control a person. It's not very nice and beautiful when you think about the codependency patterns here. I've done it a lot in the past. So it happens to the best of us. So we say yes when we mean no, or we say yes because we get so caught up in their excitement. Remember, we can feel other people's stuff, right? We get so caught up in their excitement for us being part of this project, saying yes, doing this, doing that, that we don't have a sense of our still point, and we say yes before we've had time to really evaluate the opportunity, see whether it's really aligned for us. So in the chapter Nirvana of No, we talk about this pendulum swing, similar to the slack line, right? So if we have always swung to one side of the pendulum, I know it seems impossible, but if we've always swung to one side, and that's being overly nice or saying yes all the time, when we start swinging the pendulum to find our center of no, our minds go, oh, well, we're going to just be assertive, right? We're just going to go from being, a people pleaser to just being balanced and assertive. No, that's not how it works. Not for most people. Most people have to fall on the other side of the slack line, swing the pendulum all the way to the other side. Not that they wanted to, but they don't know what center is. They don't know what assertiveness is. And then what happens is that you end up being aggressive. If you've been passive your whole life, suddenly that beach ball comes screaming out of the water, exploding out of the water, and then aggression occurs. You don't want it, but you've tried to go on that one side of the pendulum for so long that when you finally try to find your center, all that pent-up rage, resentment, disappointment, yada, 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 it comes rearing its ugly head. And then sometimes what blurts out of your mouth may not be so nice. May actually be kind of mean. Maybe it's a bit aggressive. And then the whole pattern goes, oh, then you feel bad because you were so aggressive, you weren't nice, you feel bad about yourself, you make yourself wrong, and you self-criticize, and then you go back to being passive again. And then you're miserable too because you can't actually say no. So I'm here to say, be willing to fall on the other side of the slack line. Be willing to experience extremes of emotion. Not that you have to hurt people with them. I'm not saying to hurt people with your anger. That's not what I'm saying. Okay? What I'm saying is allow yourself the compassion to feel whatever it is you feel in the moment in response to whatever's happening in the outside world. I get it. You're a human being. Well, actually, you're a spiritual being having a human experience, but that's technical. Allow that pendulum to swing. Not that you're trying to be mean, right? Not that you're trying to be aggressive, but just be nice to yourself. Be self-compassionate when, I'm going to say when instead of if you've been passive, that aggression occurs and just realize, oops, okay, wow, that was aggressive, right? That was not what I meant. Or, wow, that was really mean. Or whatever comes out of your mouth or your being, just be compassionate, realizing you're just trying to find the center. You can't find the center if you don't go to the extremes. Just like in the slack line, if you do not fall on the other side enough times, right, you actually don't find the balance. So sometimes things will come out and you'll blurt it out and it'll be aggressive and it'll be not nice. And then you might feel bad about yourself, but I'm here to say, forgive yourself quickly. To go, oh yeah, that's just me going past the slack line, right? You don't have to tell that to somebody else. They're like, what are you talking about, right? So this is what I've done. As I was practicing this and healing my codependent patterns, there was cases in the office where, somebody was just asking for too much, and I was nice, too nice, and finally I had it. And I blurted something else out. That was not so nice, which shocked the person, shocked myself, actually. But that's what happens when you try to push this beach ball down. And here was the saving grace. When you know that that is what's necessary to find the balance, and you are going from passive, trying to be assertive, but you go to aggressive, this is what I did. I said, oops, whoa, that kind of came out a bit aggressive. That kind of came out wrong. Wow, sorry about that. Erase. Let me try that again. It's not resonating with me to do this, and this. I'm so sorry if it disappoints you. Instead of, I'm not doing that stupid thing, right? Like, or whatever I said. I can't remember. I actually don't remember the scenario, but it was like literally came out like, like really like aggressive, like, whoa, who is that? Dr. Karen's always so nice. Like, who is that? Right. And then I had to go, whoa, 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 whoa. I didn't say that quite right. Excuse me about that. Erase. And if this is someone that you're actually talking to, that's a trusted friend, someone who's also into spirituality and growth and that kind of thing, then I might even say something like, wow, okay, that didn't come out right. Hang on. Erase. Okay, what I meant to say is yada, 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 yada. Don't mind me because I'm actually practicing being assertive because I've been passive most of my life. And so sometimes when I'm trying to practice this, it kind of goes the other way and gets a little aggressive, and I apologize about that. Thank you for, being willing to me practicing, right? This imperfect action to attempt to be more assertive and be more authentic because I value our relationship. And I want to let you know that, right? Now, of course, it's very advanced in terms of conversation and very vulnerable and transparent. And this may not be appropriate for everybody you talk to, especially not the mailman, right? But it would be fun to do this practice with someone who you trust. So they realize that you're working on this process of standing up for yourself, of being assertive and not aggressive. And sometimes you might be a bit edgy because you're looking for that balance point. And you can explain this whole thing about the slack line. You can explain, to a trusted friend around the whole pendulum swing. And I got to tell you, it doesn't take much because at least in my experience, when I've allowed myself to go to the extreme and just to hold the boundary and then realizing, well, that's not how I wanted to say it, correct myself, apologize, and then just let go of the self-criticism, right? I've noticed that I go to balance much faster. Like I'm able to be more assertive and not like a doormat, and also not like a bully or an aggressive person. And that was really lovely. I'll give you this one example. And this is so fun. I tell this story all the time. I'll call my patient Steve. I'll call him Steve. Okay, so Steve is a joker, and sometimes his jokes are a little like stingy. Let's put it that way. So we're finishing up an acupuncture, and Steve comes to the desk, and he says, "Okay, well, I want to make another appointment in 2 weeks." I said, "Oh, Steve, sorry, I'm going to be away. Those 2 weeks." And or that week, and he looks up with this little wry smile and he goes, "Oh, must be nice," right? In the past, I'd feel embarrassed. I'd feel like, well, I'd feel defensive, like, well, us doctors work really hard, and we need time off too, like, silly. I'd laugh now. I think it's silly, but yeah. But I was able to catch it. I realized that I was being tested to see where would I go with this wry comment, with this, like, oh, must be nice, right? Was I going to take it personally? Was I going to go to the extreme and be angry and defensive or whatever I wanted to be in the moment? Or was I going to see it for what it was? And what it was a challenge, and what I call an abundance challenge. Like the universe is going, okay, we'll see how well you've been doing the slack line and see what response you get. No rights or wrongs, just seeing where you're at, right? And I was able to catch that it was a challenge. So I said, Steve says, "Oh, must be nice." And I knew it was a shadow of mine, of overwork and all this low self-worth and all this kind of stuff. So I knew when it came up, that's what it was pointing to. And I thought, oh, I'm passing this test. So very quickly I said, "Oh, Steve, you're absolutely right. It is very nice. And you know what? I think you should do it too. Take more time off." He starts laughing, right? We book his appointment. That was the end of that. And you know what? I never got that comment again because the universe goes, "Oh, she passed that test. Finally, after all these years." Yeah. So sometimes actually agreeing with the person is helpful. All right. So thanks for joining me on this journey on one side and the other side of the slack line, from one side to the other side of the pendulum, experiencing those extremes and remembering that our willingness to feel the extremes really dictates our ability to feel what we do want to feel at the end of the day, which is bliss and happiness. And in case you're like, wait, Dr. Karen, you're ending this podcast episode and you didn't tell us, like, what do we do with these negative emotions? Okay, let me give you a hint. STOIM, stillness through observing internal movement. Now, it's chapter 4 in my book, Sensitivity is Your Superpower. I also have a freebie link, stillnessonthefly.com, where you can get a free 30-minute training on it. The idea is whenever we are experiencing a so-called negative or uncomfortable emotion, whether it be labeled anger, resentment, disappointment, fear, and so on, here's the trick. We actually tune into the body and we feel what that emotion feels like in the body. Does it feel like a lot of energy? Oftentimes it does. Where is it? Is it in the head? Is it in the heart? Is it in the arms, the legs? I have a funny story, which I won't tell here, but you can read it in the book about, a scary movie and paying attention to my body instead of not going to sleep. I was like, well, I might as well be scared. And by experiencing these so-called negative emotions in the body, guess what? They process. We allow them, we accept them, and instead of building into a beach ball, they're just released. Sometimes you do have to feel it, accept it, acknowledge it, and even love those energies, because the other side of that is joy and bliss, right? You process it through the body, through feeling it in the body. What does it feel like in the body? Be curious. Oftentimes, that energy can be used for productive purposes, for creation, believe it or not. It's pretty cool. Anyway, we'll have to talk about that in another episode. Thank you so much for joining me on Light Warrior Radio today. And if this episode resonated with you, please give it a like, share it, and put your comments below. And let's stay connected in the light medicine community, where a whole bunch of sensitive souls and I enjoy this safe space, sacred space where we can come together, support each other, love each other, and I'll make sure I'll put the link in the show notes below. Love to see you there. We have monthly mini healings every month and all sorts of really fun things happening there. So I'll see you in the community, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now. Hey, thanks for watching my video. And if it resonated with you, would love for you to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, perhaps the notification bell, so every time I do a new video, you'll be notified. And feel free to share it with anyone that you think might resonate with that message too. In the meantime, would love to connect with you in my light medicine community. We have free mini healings every month and all sorts of really fun things that we do. Not only that, but also we get to lovingly share and support each other in a safe space. It's free to join. I'll put the link below, and I look forward to seeing you there. And remember to introduce yourself when you first come in so we can all say hi. All right. Thanks so much, and we'll see you there.